Getting a divorce in Missouri is actually simpler than you might think. One spouse must be a resident of Missouri for 90 days before filing for divorce. The divorce should be filed in the county where the petitioner resides. There is a 30-day waiting period after filing before a divorce is granted. Once the residency requirement is completed, a legal grounds for a divorce must be established. Only one reason exists for getting divorced in Missouri, and that is irretrievable breakdown of the marriage and no reasonable likelihood that the marriage can be preserved. Missouri requires a parenting plan for child custody. Joint or sole custody is awarded based on the best interests of the child and considering the preference of the child, the wishes of the parents, and any proposed parenting plan submitted by both parents, the child's adjustment to his or her home, school, and community, the mental and physical health of all individuals involved, any history of child or spouse abuse, the child's need for a continuing relationship with both parents, both parents' willingness and ability to perform parental obligations, the intention of either parent to relocate his or her residence, which parent is more likely to allow the child frequent and meaningful contact with the other parent, and the relationship of the child with parents, siblings, and other significant family members. Domestic violence against a child is a bar to custody. No preference is given because of a parent's sex, age, or financial status, or the child's age or sex. Legislation supports joint custody or arrangements, which encourages the parents to share the responsibility of caring for the child. Joint custody must include a joint custody plan. A parent not granted custody is entitled to reasonable visitation. Either or both parents may provide child support. Marital misconduct is not considered in this assignment. The following factors are considered: the child's custody arrangements, the financial resources and needs of the child, the standard of living the child would have enjoyed if the marriage had not been dissolved, the physical and emotional conditions and educational needs of the child, and the financial resources, needs, and obligations of both the non-custodial and the custodial parent. A parent may be required to provide health insurance coverage for any children if available at a reasonable cost from an employer, union, or other organization. There are official child support guidelines in the statute, which are presumed correct unless unjust or inappropriate under the circumstances. The court may order the payments made through the circuit clerk. Missouri is an equitable distribution state. Each spouse retains his or her separate property obtained prior to the marriage, including any gifts or inheritances. In addition, any property exchanged for separate property or interest from separate property remains as separate. Commingled property does not become marital solely based on commingling. Marital property includes all property acquired after the marriage, whether held jointly or individually, except gifts or inheritances, property received in exchange for non-marital property, an increase in non-marital property, or property excluded by a written agreement between the spouses is divided after a consideration of the following factors: the contribution of each spouse to the acquisition of the marital property, including the contribution of each spouse as homemaker, the value of each spouse's property, the economic circumstances of each spouse at the time the division of property is to become effective, the conduct of the spouses during the marriage generally and as it relates to the disposition of their property, the desirability of awarding the family home to the spouse having custody of the children, and any custodial arrangements for children. Either spouse may be awarded alimony if that spouse can show an inability to support himself or herself and a lack of sufficient property, including his or her share of any marital property, to provide for his or her own needs, or that the spouse seeking support is the custodian of a child whose condition or circumstances make it appropriate for that spouse not to seek outside employment. This is determined by the time necessary to acquire sufficient education and training to enable the spouse to find appropriate employment and that spouse's future earning capacity, the standard of living established during the marriage, the duration of the marriage, the ability of the spouse from whom support is sought to meet his or her needs while meeting those of the spouse seeking support, the financial resources of the spouse seeking maintenance, including marital property apportioned to such spouse and such spouse's ability to meet his or her needs independently, the age of the spouses, the physical and emotional conditions of the spouses, the obligations, assets, and separate property of the spouses, the comparative earning capacities of each spouse, and the conduct of the spouses during the marriage. The court may order these payments made through the circuit clerk. The court can delay a divorce proceeding for 30 to 180 days and suggest that the spouses seek counseling with regards to mediation. Visit us today at www.mydivorcepapers.com and click on Missouri at the bottom of the page. Let mydivorcepapers.com help you file for divorce today.